Growing up as a young boy, my father told me there are three things that every man needs in life. One, he said every man needs to know who he is. Never let anyone define that for you. Secondly, he said every man needs to know how to cook, especially if your wife is practicing. I advise that you don't tell that now, because you might get a good divorce. And thirdly, he said every man needs a great job, a place where he can work hard to have something for himself in life. But what my father didn't tell me is what a man needs when he loses at what he tries to win the most. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, most honored guest. Like most men I knew growing up, they were always taught in order to succeed in life, you got to have a great job and work really hard at it. And my father was no different. You see, my father learned responsibility early on in life. He had 3 growing boys by the age of 25. And yes, I'm still growing. My father would always work hard to try to have things. And I could see him coming home from work each day as he would walk through the door, and you could see his fatigued face and his rough and dry hands as he would come by me and my brothers and briefly speak to us, as he would proceed to gingerly walk to his bedroom and close the door to take some time to himself. And upon that, my mother always would say, your father works very hard for us to get ahead in life. And I never really understood what that meant back then. You see, like most young kids, I always thought my father was the strongest and the fastest. And this place that he goes to work every day called a job is forever, right? I carry that same mentality when I enter into the workforce, working excessively hard to try to show my value in my work. I can recall one particular experience. I fell sick overnight, and I was working at a department store. And before going to work the next day, I was really bad ill. So bad that I had to go to the emergency room. So here I am, can you picture? I'm laying on a gurney bed. But the dominant thought that came through my mind was I have to be at work in a few hours. It's tough. So even when I left out of the ER, I had my mother to drop me off in front of the store. So as I proceeded to walk through the door, I'm hunched over, I'm in excruciating pain as I tried to stock the shelf there before management eventually sent me home. But that was the mentality that I had, just like my father. It kind of reminds me of in the sporting world, there's an award that's called the Iron Man Award. And in baseball, the great Cal Ripken Jr., in 1995, he surpassed Lou Gehrig for the most consecutive games played in. He played in over 2,131 games that year. He broke the record. Can you imagine that? Never calling in sick when you're sick. Performing even when you're injured out on the field. Heck, most of us nowadays call in if you got a hangnail. I don't think I'm gonna make it in today, boss. All because you don't want to let the team down. That's the mentality that he had. My father was forced with this decision. You see, a few years ago, my father was involved in a motorcycle accident. What should have been a routine morning of going to a place that he worked at over 20 years, he didn't make it that morning. That day, he lost his leg. But that wasn't all that he lost. He lost something to him that was much more valuable to him. He lost his choice. You see, I couldn't even imagine not being able to go to a place that you've known for so long. Your past, your present, and your future, all in this particular place. But this would be a lesson that I too would learn like my father. I was laid off a few years ago, and I thought my value was in a job. I thought, yes, the company has to know, they have to see value in me. It's what I'm bringing to the table. And because of that, when I was laid off, I struggled. Because I could not realize that this job, they're the ones telling me what I'm worth. That's where my self-worth is coming from, what they're telling me. And if they're laying me off, then I must not be worth that much. It wasn't until a conversation that I had with my father over the phone, and he said, son, how are you doing today? And I proceeded to tell him all the different things that's going on in my life. But he said, son, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing pretty good, Dad. He said, how's the job search going along? Someone told me this quote here. They said, it's better to be tired from a hard day's work than a hard day of looking for work. And I understood that back then. So when my father was talking to me, I said, well, Dad, I'm doing different things. I'm updating my resume online. I'm sending it out to different job searches. I'm trying to go to different network events, trying to socialize, just to let him know that I had everything under control. And he said, son, I'm proud of you. Just that simple. Son, I'm proud of you. You see, I was struggling with the fact of approval from my father. All that time I was working hard throughout the years, all I was looking for approval from my dad. And for him, as he journeyed through his process, it was the approval from his family, knowing that he is still a provider for the family. So we learned a lot during this journey. And during this process, sometimes we find ourselves in our own lives hiding behind the mask of our jobs or occupation, struggling because we feel that that's what society says that we're worth. Society dictates if you make a lot of money or you have a great title, that's what you're truly worth. Just like I was looking for the approval from my father, to me, that was priceless. So I tell you today, never allow your work to replace your worth.